Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at the topic of cheerleader cards. And this is a part one of a two-part video where, sorry that this one's pretty long, but I need to break this down into two sections. I need to look at cheerleader cards across multiple teams, and then I'll do a separate video just looking at individual team cheerleader card sets. But I was really curious to look at cheerleader cards because cheerleaders are people we really do kind of forget about. They're only kind of marginally associated with the tapestry of a sporting event because you've got the actual players out there. The cheerleaders for football are off on the side, and for basketball, they are, pro basketball at least, does not even have cheerleaders. There's no reason for it because at least in football, there are big breaks in the action, and so the cheerleaders can keep the activities of the team or keep the energy of the game going. Whereas over in basketball, while that's important in high school and maybe in college, at the pro level, you don't need that. So they have dance teams instead that perform at halftime. But regardless, they are a part of the events of the team. And look, let's face it, they are not only professional, but they're also athletes at a level beyond what most of us are. But they don't really get thought of on an individual basis because normally when we experience cheerleaders outside of a sporting event, we're going to some event where there's a kind of a team representation where they have a couple of cheerleaders who are signing their names. And so you get these autographs of individuals, but you don't know who they are. You don't really care about that so much as it's just some cheerleaders. That's kind of the way we tend to think about them, which is, I think that's kind of too bad. Nowadays, it's a lot easier to see, like on websites, them broken down on an individual basis. But in the 80s and 90s, that wasn't so much the case. Maybe in a game day magazine, but past that, they're just the cheerleaders. And their presence in cards kind of fit that way. So like there's the 1992 Pro Set Innovators card, which talks about the innovation of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleader team. And then you get like police sets in the 1980s where they would have different cards regarding the team, and there would be maybe one card dedicated to the cheerleaders. That's kind of about it. But there are some cases where cards for the cheerleaders was created, which is good because, look, we have cards of coaches, we have cards of owners. For crying out loud, 1991 Pro Set had an entire subset of referees. So if we've got the referees, why not cheerleaders somewhere? And like I said, we did get some examples of it. The first case of that was actually just a team set for the Cowboys in 1981, which I'm not going to go into here. But the next opportunity that we had came in 1992 with Lime Rock. And for Lime Rock, that was one of those small companies that, along with Courtside and Star Picks and Front Row, who was just trying to figure out how to make cards in this crazy sports card world. We were buying cards of all sorts of stuff. And the idea of coming up with something kind of unique that we would buy into was something that a couple of these different companies were bandying around. So normally they were over in the college area making college cards, which gave us some not quite pro cards to chase, which kind of worked. But with Lime Rock, they eventually settled on a 1992 card set where they were going to make cheerleader cards. And because Lime Rock for sports cards came really out of the basketball side, the 1992 set is 3 different dance teams. And I think that the cards are manufactured by Pro Set. They are a white border around the outside with a thin color band around that, and then a really seemingly big image in the middle. The image seems really big because it's very clear and is very well made. It's really quite impressive, and then down at the bottom there's a color band with the team name, the dance team name on it. And then floating somewhere in the card is the name, both the first name and the last name, which is a nice change from what we would see in like playing cards. And then also the the city that they represent, which seems kind of redundant when you see the name down at the bottom. On the card back, you have a metallic gold finish, which is why I think Pro Set manufactured these. And it's around a very large portrait on the back, which is nice. some basic stats or some basic bio notes, and then a nice little write-up that talks about basically who she is in terms of her profession. Is she a student? Is she like a dance teacher? Does she actually have a job? That kind of information. So she actually is a fully rounded person, but it also gives you a feeling for what these dance team members who just do something, do a little performance at night after work, or for the cheerleaders who perform after perform on the weekends. We get to see what their actual normal life is composed of, which gives a little bit more of an understanding of cheerleaders, which I think that's really kind of cool. But it is interesting looking at this set because the Lime Rock did not create the images. They didn't take the photos. The photos were provided by each team, which means that you get to see kind of how each team approached their presentation. The first team is the Bullets, which sounds more like a Chicago team rather than a Washington team, but the Washington Bullets cheerleaders were the Bullets. And you get to see here that they have actually two different uniforms. Now, these are not home and away because there's no reason for cheerleaders to travel to another place and hype up the other crowd, or in the case of the dance teams, there's no reason to go off and entertain another audience. And that's part of how the cost is really kind of trimmed back for cheerleaders, is they don't get paid much because it's a little side job in town. But they do need to keep things kind of lively because when you have 41 home games a year, you want to make sure that the audience has a feeling of significant difference in the performances that are being provided. And so they do have different uniforms, which you get to see here with the Bullets. When you move over to the Sixers Dream Team, here this is a very, very stark white background, which allows for each of the dance team members to really pop out and stand out. Very, very clear, really quite nice the way that it looks. Obviously quite nice. But with this particular team set, they have 3 cards that are done differently, where it's actually outdoor shots in a very artistic sense, which kind of breaks up the set and makes these cards really kind of cool. And the last team set, the third team set, is for the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is the Reebok Performance Team. And this team, you might notice, well, they're action shots. They're actually action shots from performing on the court. And this is really cool because of all of the cards that I've found on cheerleaders for the 90s, almost all of them are some sort of a staged shot. This is just about the only time you get to see them actually performing. And that's not a knock on any of the other cards, because trust me, the other cards look great. But I love seeing the action shots, which I wish that they'd at least done like a subset for each team. I don't know why they didn't, but for the Reebok team, this is the big distinction, or for the Minnesota team, this is the big distinction, which is that it's all action shots. Except there's one other distinction, which is pretty kind of ironic, which is that the names of each member of the dance team, well, here it's just a first name. They don't use the last name. Why? I don't know. But it is something that's always kind of stood out to me. So that was the set, or that was the first set, and then they released a whole second set, which was their Series 2, but it's really just the NFL cheerleaders. So we have 3 sets of dance team, the members of different dance teams in the NBA, and then we have another set of 4 cheerleader teams in the second set. And for these cards, they're designed almost exactly the same, with a numeric continuation, so they just pick up after the Reebok Performance Team. The only difference is they got rid of that color box down at the bottom, and they instead of replacing it, they just left it so the portrait takes up more space, but they have a floating logo for each of the teams. And the team starts off with the New Orleans Saints-Sations. These are gorgeous images. The Saints-Sations made sure to really focus on making these cards just come out, which it makes sense that they would do that because the uniforms, the gold uniforms are very well thought out. These look gorgeous. And in fact, a part of their uniform, or their uniform kit, is they have parasols. And those parasols show up on a couple of cards and really give a cool debutante kind of a feel. to the team, which helps with how they look in comparison to how they're presented. They put in so much attention to making these cards look great. And part of the reason I emphasize that is because the next team is the OGs, the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, which I cannot believe how bad these cards are. This is terrible. I mean, the image quality is lousy. The lighting is non-existent. She is a really small presence on the card, so you can't even see her. And then the backdrops are just horrendous. That wall with the stars is very kitsch. And even when she is at a stadium, same thing, they just look horrendous. When I look at these, I think, man, in 1978, they came up with an idea and said, we're always going to do that. It's been a decade and a half. It's time to upgrade. In fact, the 1981 card set that I mentioned, those cards look better than these cards. And the fact that these follow the Sensations cards is not good. Even worse, next up, we have the Raiderettes. And the Raiderettes, wow, these are impressive. So there are two different places in the country that are big on modeling. High-end modeling is New York. More of a pop cultural modeling, that is LA. So the Raiderettes, you can very much understand that they would be bringing in the whole modeling component to the photography. And part of the reason is because, well, some of the members of this team actually did show up in the Benchwarmer set in 1992. So, and that is pretty common, that a lot of cheerleaders do tend to be models as well. But this whole card set was built, or the whole image shoot for the Raiderettes was built around really nice fashion shots, and it reads well. But that's not all that's in this team, because they also have directors and choreographers included, so it's the entire Raiderettes team. The Raiders have always been impressively forward-thinking. I mean, not on the field, but behind the scenes, they've always been a bit forward-thinking, and so this actually kind of shows that, where they're thinking about, it's not just the cute women, it's actually the people who are running the organization as well. So, pretty cool. But the fourth team goes very much in the opposite direction of that, which is the Miami Dolphins Cheerleaders. But the big thing about this set is that these shots are all fun. That's the thing. It's all about the thrill, the energy of the idea of cheerleaders. Comes through so well on these cards. So, cool. And that closes out the set. But it doesn't close out everything to say about it, because first off, it's all a continuous numeric sequence. And the reason I differentiate that is every single team has an individual checklist for that team. On the back, it has the checklist with the same metallic gold for the detailing around the border. But on the front, they have the contact information for the team, and maybe a pitch for buying calendars and videos. But the reason that they have the contact information on the front isn't really so that you can get autographs, as much as each one of these teams operates in part as a PR group where they go out to special events. And so this is a marketing opportunity for each one of these 7 teams to kind of pitch themselves as being available for special events. Gives you a bit of a feeling for how the teams themselves approached this card set. But there's more to it than that, because it's 1992. Did they have inserts? Sort of. So Lime Rock, like Courtside and like Star Picks and Classic, they like to do promo cards. And the promo cards were just distributed all over the place, because at these card shows, you really wanted to try to capture an audience and get them interested in cards. And so for the Series 1 basketball promos, they were done with, it's just a couple of the cards in the set. They're the same cards. There's no difference, except on the back it says promo in red text on the left side. But the reason I talk about this here is because they also had promos that showed up in packs as inserts. And I haven't been able to verify this, because I've opened a number of boxes. I didn't get any inserts. But some of the inserts do come in a separate way, which is everything's the same, except on the front they have a holofoil stamp for the SCA convention in St. Louis. I believe that those were the inserts in packs. The problem is I don't know because I didn't pull any out of packs, so I don't know which way they came, but I believe that's the ones that were in packs. And if you're eagle-eyed, you might notice that the two images actually are not the same image. More than that, if you're really eagle-eyed, you might notice that they're not even the same person. So the woman over on the right is actually Lisa Marie Byram, who has her own promo card. And that's the problem. So there were two cards in the promo set. Terry Derryberry, which, let's just get it out of the way, is one of the coolest names ever. Terry Derryberry and Lisa Marie Byram, the images got swapped between the two. So everything on Terry's card is correct for Terry's card, front, back, everything. And everything on Lisa's card is correct, front, back, and everything, except for both images on both cards were swapped for the promo cards. By the regular set cards, they got corrected. So the promo cards are uncorrected errors. But here's where it really gets interesting, because the box for the set, the box that you got the packs out of, was covered with promo cards, all run around the outside. But right on the front of the box, they have two cards, and one of the two cards is the Terry Derryberry card, which features Lisa for the image, which means that the box itself is an uncorrected error. But for Series 2, they did promos in a different way, where they actually created a whole card set of 4 cards, one card for each of the 4 teams, numbered separately, P1, P2, P3, P4. And in this case, they have, the cheerleaders are the same cheerleaders as in the main set, except the images are different, which is good because Amy Merriman Lemon, well, now we actually get to see her with a good image. So one of the Dallas Cowboys cards looks good. It's the promo card. And likewise, these cards have not the SCA stamp, but they have a different stamp that says Inside Trader, that is a circle down in the bottom corner. So the football cards come with the Inside Trader stamp on the proper promo cards, and then the basketball cards have the variation promo cards with the holofoil stamp. I believe that that is the distinction, because that's everything that I've been able to find any record of. But again, if anybody knows, please let me know. But I do have to note that's not the only thing you were supposed to be able to find in packs that, again, I've not been able to verify. Supposedly, they also had autographs. Now, I can't talk about the basketball cards because I've seen very few autographs of the basketball cards, and I believe that the ones that I've seen have all been in-person autographs, which is very common. The fact that cheerleaders now had trading cards meant that a lot of these cards did get autographed. But, at least on the football side, a lot of the cards that you're going to find are blank backed, and I believe that those are the official out-of-pack autographs. Once again, I'd like to have verification on that, but it does appear that that's the way you can differentiate authentic autographs from the packs versus in-person autographs. But that finally does bring Lime Rock to a close, which is about time, because there's a lot to talk about. But there was one other very significant set, which was in 1994, called Sideliners. And the Sideliners set is, well, it's also 7 teams, just like we saw with the 2 Lime Rock sets, except in this case it's all football cards. But also the quality of the cards is significantly better. So here with these cards, it's more like a 1994 card, which is what you would expect, but the cards look a lot fancier. Even though I don't think they're actually better per se. On the back they're a lot better, but on the front, there's a little bit less real estate for the most part, where you do have a white border around the outside. You have a double team color band on the inside, which allows for a really good team feel on these cards. And then there is an extra space at the bottom, which allows for the full name of the cheerleader. But then you also see that the number is on the card front. And the number you'll notice is there's a letter at the front, and that's because this is not one set. This is actually 7 team sets. You open up a box and they have, well, there's actually an 8th set, which we'll get to in a minute. But in packs, they have all 7 of these teams showing up throughout the packs. But every single set is designed so that it's an individual team. So this team has its set, and then the next team and the next team. So number 1 keeps repeating set after set with just a letter differentiating this team from another. And you can see from the Derek dolls that every single team has a title card with a checklist on the back. In a lot of cases, they just have the logo for the cheer squad on the front, and then the checklist on the back, of course. But the thing is that these sets were often found in complete set form, so you typically see this as the beginning of the set, the header of the set. And I love the Houston Oilers Derek dolls images because they have that big, way gaudy, over the top, ridiculous, way too much gold sequiny backdrop that is just, I love it. It is audacious, it is ridiculous, it's the kind of thing that makes sense only in Texas, but it makes every one of these cheerleaders just glow in the card. It's really cool how it comes across. So this particular team has such a distinct look that is really quite cool. And then I'm going through this set based upon how these teams would show up in a main card set for the pro set, or for the pro teams. So the next set that I have is the Raiderettes. And for the Raiderettes, the images are not quite as impressive as Lime Rock. The Lime Rock images, the ones they did for those, are truly artistic creations by somebody who understands modeling. Here with the Sideliners set, it's a little bit more mundane. It's more of a typical portrait. It's not an issue, it's just, kind of the way that it is. Now with the LA Rams, things get kind of interesting because the title card doesn't show off the Rams' name. Instead, it's a picture of cheerleaders in swimsuits, because that was something that they were pushing pretty hard. Their swimsuit calendars was something that was a big part of their marketing and their sales. So it's right there on the title card. And you'll notice that they have outdoor shots for all the images. But this set does also include, a lot of these sets include the directors, the choreographers, but the set also for the Rams includes their stunt team. And the stunt team is a couple of women and some male ballerina-like men who are just there to prop up the women. There are 2 cards for the stunt team. They don't specify who the members of the stunt team are, but it shows action shots on the front, and then on the back they have more static shots of the teams. And this is really unusual because you don't see stunt teams mentioned anywhere else, just on these 2 cards. So really pretty cool. And then the next team after this is the Minnesota Vikings cheerleading squad. And in this case, this is really interesting because, we're back to first names. So just like with the Reebok Performance Team, which is the Minnesota Timberwolves dance team, who they only had first names on the cards, here with the Minnesota Vikings cheerleaders, same thing. I don't know if this is like cultural, or if there's this kind of small town protect women from being like stalked or something kind of mentality. I don't know. But both of those teams are the only cases where you see only the first name. You don't see the last name. For the New England Patriots, the photos, it's kind of interesting because the photos are out in the real world, except all of the cheerleaders are in their cheerleader outfits. So it's almost like they just normally live their lives in cheerleading outfits. It's a weird photo shoot. It's very distinct, though, the way that it looks, but it does actually give an interesting counterpoint to how you would normally see, cheerleaders. And then there is one other team set that shows up in both the Lime Rock as well as in the Sideliner set, which is the Saints-Sations. These cards are not nearly as impressive as the Lime Rock set. So both of those teams, the Raiderettes and the Saints-Sations, are a little bit more by the numbers here in this set. I like the Lime Rock cards better personally, but you got this set. And then you have the San Diego Charger Girls. And the Charger Girls are, okay, here's what I find interesting about this, is that they have the school portrait backdrop, which is really nice, but it also kind of looks like the ocean. When I look at this card up close, I look at it as a normal portrait backdrop. But when I look at this from far away, it always looks to me like the ocean behind them, which is basically exactly what you would expect from San Diego. So kind of interesting how these come across. But this is actually a perfect timing to be talking about this, to segue into what was essentially an insert set or a promo set, or not entirely sure, which is the Sideliners swimsuits. And this set is a 9-card set, or 10-card set, kind of, which is 3 cards from each of 3 teams, which is the Rams, the Saints-Sations, and the Charger Girls. And it is, swimsuit shots on the front, and then on the back they have portraits. But each one of these 9 cheerleaders shows up in the main set, so you can actually tie across and see where the cheerleaders showed up in the main set. Kind of cool. But the reason I say it's kind of 9, kind of 10 is because they also have an order form card that often came along with this. And the order form card, it sells things like team videos and team calendars and team DVDs, as well as you could buy individual team sets, and you could also buy a whole 36 count box through this order form, or through this catalog, as it were. But this is a card that is basically kind of considered a part of the insert set. But before we go on and talk about the last 2 cases, I do want to mention that there is one person who showed up in both the original Lime Rock set and the Sideliners set, which is interesting because we're talking about basketball and then football. And that is that Jennifer Thomas, in 1992, she was in Philadelphia and she was part of the Sixers Dream Team. Then in 1994, she was in LA and she was a Raiderette, which means she actually shows up in 2 different sports. I think that's kind of cool. But that brings to a close those 2 sets, which is a surprising amount to talk about them. So in the time after that, there was basically nothing that really happened, except we did have 2 notable moments that occurred where, one, the XFL showed up. And the XFL, part of its marketing from the outset was cheerleaders, cheerleaders, cheerleaders. It's pro wrestling. So of course you're going to have hot women as a big part of the draw. So important were cheerleaders to the image of the XFL that when Topps created their set, a big part of the set was cheerleaders from all the teams. Now, I've already talked about the XFL in a video. So if you want to go and see the XFL cards and understand them, go check it out there. I just wanted to mention that they appeared in this set, and then there's also a tabletop football set that has 1 cheerleader from each team in it. But interestingly, the only other person who shows up in that set is football player Rashaan Salam. So 8 of the 9 people in the set were all cheerleaders. But that was the XFL weird affair. As far as the NFL goes, we did have one special set that popped up in 2009 from Topps. It's an insert set, 15 cards, 1 card for one of the members of the Cincinnati Bengals cheerleading team, a couple of cards for the Miami Dolphins, and then the rest of the cards are for the Jacksonville Jaguars cheerleaders. And because it's Topps, you better believe that they also did a card set for the Topps Chrome set. And in this case, they took that really wonderful color band or color feature down the side of the gorgeous card design. And for the Chrome, they just made it clear, or they made it silver. And the reason that's important is because this set does come with parallels, and the refractor card has a silver the whole card's a refractor, but the silver area remains open with a refractor effect. And these cards are numbered out of 199. But they also had 2 other parallels, the first one being white refractor. Here the entire card is a refractor, but that band down the side, or that piece down the side, is all in white. And these cards are numbered out of 100. But the third one, the really tough one, is blue. Obviously the band on the strip down the side is blue, and these cards are all serial numbered out of 50. And these are really tough to get your hands on because these cards are extremely popular because of the fact that they're so unusual. So the fact that they had this set makes it a draw. The base cards for both Topps and for Topps Chrome are easy to get your hands on, but the refractors are very heavily pursued. And that brings the first part of this story to a close. That's the way that the multi-team sets were set up, both Lime Rock and Sideliners, as well as when they appeared in 2009 Topps. I'm going to look at the individual team sets that were created with normal trading cards in the upcoming video. So, if you have any questions about this, or especially if you have any insight into it, I would love to hear what you've got to say. So please let me know about that. If you haven't subscribed, please do that, because I love to cover everything about cards, anything I can find. And here we are with cheerleader cards. You get an idea of the breadth of what I like to cover. So if you haven't had a chance to explore the different videos I've got, it's a pretty impressive array. So definitely do that. And yeah, I want to thank you guys for watching.